Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Robin Waite with us. Robin, thank you so much for joining.
That's a pleasure, Atul. Thank you for having me.
Okay, brother. So for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder of Fearless Business. Fearless Business is a business accelerator for coaches, consultants, and freelancers. Essentially, my goal is to help people escape the time for money trap. So stop selling, hourly rates, day rates, and instead productize their service. So they sell packages based on outcomes and results. And when our clients learn how to do that, they can charge significantly more than what they were charging previously. So my goal is to basically help people make more money.
Okay, so how did you go from agency owner to business coach?
It was a bit of a happy accident, actually. So I ran a marketing agency for 12 years, primarily doing web design and branding. And part of that was because I didn't really like speaking to people. I'll be very honest, Atul. I was quite much happier as a web designer, just sat behind a computer screen, not seeing anybody from like one day to the next. But I sold that agency in 2016 when my family started to grow. I now have two daughters who are 11 and 9. So just to kind of, for timescales, it puts it into context. But the late nights, the all-nighters, last-minute product launches and things like that didn't agree with me. Sold the agency and then kind of took a bit of time out just to spend with family. And I'd worked very hard for sort of the best part of 15 years. And then eventually got bored of like the baby conversations and changing nappies. So decided that I would go back out and do some networking. Of course, the first question everybody asks is, what do you do? And I was like, well, nothing. Because I literally wasn't doing anything. And then the story would come out that I'd sold an agency and I at networking events, there's lots of, creative agencies, freelancers and people like that. And they said, well, can you teach us how to do that? And I was like, yeah, sure. Buy me coffee and cake. I'll sit down and we'll talk about like your business and see if there's any way I can help. And it turns out actually I was pretty good at it. My clients started to see some really good results. And then about a year later, 2017 rolled around and my earnout, my money was starting to sort of deplete a little bit. And I wanted to take it a bit more seriously. So essentially retrained as a coach and started out doing a lot of the very traditional sort of stuff around goal setting and mindset and things like that. But very quickly realized that that's not the stuff which, grows your business the fastest. Getting your prices right and making sure your business is profitable actually makes far more significant changes and far quicker. Sort of for the last 8-9 years, I've really just doubled down on the pricing and money mindset work with clients and got great results through it.
Okay, so how do you help them decide what pricings to have?
Yeah, so most people when somebody sort of asks them about how much their product or service is, they immediately feel like they have to justify their price. So they will start to list off all of the different features which their product or service has within it. The reality is though, especially in the service client space, most people aren't buying what you do. They're not buying your time. They're not buying the website you build or the coaching which you offer. What they're buying is the result or outcome from the website or the coaching or the accounts packages you put together. So the first thing is to figure out what is the dream outcome or result which you deliver for your clients and clearly articulate that, be really specific. And a majority of the time, especially in the business sector, it's kind of like, I'm going to make you more money, I'm going to save you some money, I'm going to save you some time. And so they're really clear. You can really clearly define what the dream outcome is that your clients are looking for. The second thing is that can you deliver those outcomes or results within a really clearly defined period of time? So, for example, as a coach, can you help somebody to double their income within 6 months? And again, there's two words which come up at this point at all, which is it depends. So it depends on the client. It depends on what they're buying. It depends on whether they do the work or not. And actually, we've banned it depends. It's a swear word at Fearless HQ. And our clients have to pay a fine if they say it, because basically it depends is code for we do too many different things for too many different types of clients. We don't have any robust systems or processes that mean that the results we deliver are repeatable. And therefore we don't want to hang our success, our success stories on that because there's too many variables. The job of a business owner actually becomes to remove as many variables out of their business as they possibly can do and figure out how to do one thing really well for one specific type of client. And then what happens is how you deliver that service, it becomes repeatable, it becomes learnable, teachable, repeatable, and you start to get the same results, but again, for similar sorts of clients. And then the thing is, because now everything is repeatable and it's predictable, ideally what you want to then be able to do, and this is the third criteria, is then charge a fixed fee for that. But again, not many people know how to go about sort of pricing for a service. So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they'll go and look at all of their competitors and compare their rates to their competitors and then charge sort of, middling an average of whatever their competitors are charging. But let's say we've got, I don't know, 5 web designers out there
Mhm.
who are all looking at one another, and none of them have a coach, none of them are experts on pricing. We don't know whether they're making profit or not. And so if you copy your competitors' pricing, you might be about to copy a flawed business model. They could be losing money and you're about to start a business up where you're losing money the same as
Yeah.
them. So what we do is we kind of, it's okay to look at your competitors because they might be doing some good stuff as well. So it's okay to look at them, but don't assume they know what they're doing. But then what I do is I dial it down to just a very simple, like, one-page business plan to help people figure out how much they should charge. So, there's kind of like 5 numbers which we sort of dial it down to. First question is really simple, like, what revenue would you like to make in the next 12 months? So let's say the business owner, we'll stick with the web design analogy because that's what I know best. I used to do it. Let's say that business owner wants to make $100,000 a year. We move on to question number 2. How much on average, or how much does the average client spend with you when they work with you? And so let's say, for example, they're charging $1,000 currently for their websites, which means that then we take the big number, okay, divide it by the smaller number, $1,000, and we end up with 100 clients. So at that point, normally the business owner's eyes pop out of their head because they're like, oh my God, 100 clients. I've got to build 100 websites next year. One, I don't think we can build 100 websites. 2, how do we get 100 customers, right? So immediately, just through those 3 questions, we can see that the business model has flaws in it. It's potentially flawed. So the next question I would ask that person would be, well, how many clients could you work with? And they might say, well, maybe 20 clients. That would be more realistic. We think we could find and attract 20 clients, and we've got the capacity to work with 20 clients. So again, we take the big number, 100K, and now we divide it by 20. And what we end up with is $5,000. And again, their eyes pop out of their head because they're immediately like, oh my God, who's going to buy our websites at $5,000? I know we need far fewer of them, but we got to stack so much extra value in there, right? So again, we're 4 questions into our inquiry with our one-page business plan. And you can already see that whether the business model is flawed, whether you're talking about capacity and pricing and revenue. And so at that point, we're kind of like, well, forget about how, whether people will pay for that 5K or not. We can then start to shift into, like, rather than, well, what outcomes or results would a customer want when they spend £5,000 on a website? And all of a sudden they're like, well, they don't really need a shopping cart or a blog on their site. Maybe what they need is like a lead generation machine. So why don't we build them a smaller website which is faster to build, but actually we focus on purely on lead generation for their business? And could we get to a point whereby that landing page that we build them generates 15 to 20 qualified leads? So what we're shifting from is we're going to sell what we do to sell the outcomes and results of what we do. And because I'm not a fan of, like, we don't just want to 5x the price point and not stack any extra value in, but what we do have to do is be better at producing results for our customers. So that's like the design, the demand side of the business. Sorry, the supply side of the business. Can we deliver 20 projects at 5K and hit £100,000 a year revenue? Then we shift into the demand side of it, the marketing side of it. So again, a lot of business owners don't know their numbers in terms of how many leads they need and how many consultations they need to sit in order to, generate those 20 clients. And as a rough rule of thumb, I normally recommend somewhere between about 20 to 30% as a good conversion rate for a service client business. So we are looking for fewer clients, but fewer higher paying clients, which makes us more money in the long term. So when you need fewer clients, you need to convert and sit fewer consultations. So for that person who needs 20 clients, well, throughout the year, they probably need to sit somewhere between 60 and 100 consultations to get those 20 clients signed up at 5K to 100K revenue. When you break it down, that's only like 1 or 2 a week. It's not that many, right? So then they shift into the, oh, okay, so we're not spending all of our days marketing and all of our days selling. We just need to find 2 people a week that, might have the budget and the need for one of our 5K websites. And so the idea there is that we're just trying to break the business down into like 5 very simple numbers that you can measure on a monthly basis to see whether you're actually hitting them or not. And I know your question was about pricing. Well, a major part of that is making sure the price is set at the right price so that, you can meet the demand, you've got the amount of capacity to be able to kind of deliver those projects.
Okay. Can you share any of your client's success story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a client who is a communications and leadership coach, and he was really struggling to figure out how to price a specific project. So we created some packages for him. Almost imagine it's like, this is very simplified, but imagine it was like a silver, gold, platinum package, starting from 25K going up to 100K. And recently had a client come along who needed some extra sort of stuff adding into their project. And during the conversation with the client, I was like, well, what's the transformation they're looking at? And he was like, oh, I didn't ask the client that. So he's kind of like, well, because I said, well, let's make some assumptions. You can always go back and check. And he was like, I thought they were just buying coaching sessions. And I was like, well, clearly they're not. Like, why do they need the coaching? So it transpired that what they were looking for was to change the communications across this whole business, like top to bottom. So there was a big transformation, change program, which they were going to implement over the course of 90 days. That was their time frame to create this change. And so he said, well, that sounds great, but how do I charge for that? And I literally said to him, well, name your number. What number would make a difference to your life right now? What do you need? And he said, well, we're moving from London up to, the Midlands. We want to be mortgage free when we move. So I was like, well, what's that number? And he's like, 150K. So I said, well, there's your price. So he went to the client, he quoted 150K. The client negotiated him down ever so slightly, but there were some things which they agreed they didn't need. But £120,000 contract for 90 days work, when previously his biggest contract before that was sort of in the 50K mark. Part of that went to consultants, associates that he worked with, but the vast majority of it was profit. So sometimes pricing, you can have the calculator to work out your pricing. Sometimes it's a matter of just putting out a big hairy number, and asking for what you want, what's going to make the biggest difference based on that transformation. And, more than likely you'll get it. And another similar example, actually, I had a client who was, he worked in digital fundraising for charities, mostly through Facebook before they've changed a lot of stuff with the giving platform now on Facebook. But so this is going back a few years. But at the time, my friend was contracted to work for UNICEF Indonesia. He had a budget of $10 million to turn it into $60 million of fundraising just for that one area for UNICEF. And he was fed up with it because he wanted to create more of an impact. He wanted every charity to know what he knew about digital fundraising. So we got chatting about what if we could teach any person in a marketing department in a charity your methodology within, say, 8 weeks, so that they could then run these campaigns themselves and then increase the amount of donations they're getting for their charities. So he went away, he built it, he extricated himself from UNICEF, so he no longer worked for them. And then it came down to sort of pricing it. And we said, well, if an individual gets this and they can 5-6x the amount of money which they're making for their charity as a result of knowing this process, well, what's that worth to a charity? And so what we did is for 8 weeks, we did a per head fee. So at the time, it was about $4,500. His first customer was Greenpeace South America, and they put 10 people onto his 8-week course. So he made $45,000 through one customer. Absolutely rocked it, and even if only like 2 or 3 people out of Greenpeace or Greenpeace South America actually got it, then they would make a significant return on that investment. His first 8 months, he did $650,000 just working with different charities, teaching them how to do what he did. Again, he had leverage, so it was a group program, so it was scalable. The only downside to it was a lot of his time was then taken up sort of doing sales calls with those various sort of charities and things like that. But in his words, it was worth it for sort of 650K.
Okay, so you have a book, Take Your Sword. So can you talk about that?
Yes, I used to. So Take Your Shots, actually, it's a story. It's written about one of my first coaching clients, a golf professional called Russ. Randomly, so how I ended up working with Russ, I did a webinar for website designers. So it's going to be my first sort of coaching product was for web designers. And 5 minutes after the webinar, I get a phone call from this very excitable young man. And he's like, I absolutely love the webinar. It's so helpful, but I just don't understand how it would work for me. And I said, oh, tell me about your web design business. And he goes, oh, no, I'm a golf pro. Anyway, he became my first coaching client, official coaching client. And when I told the story about how I helped Russ transform his business, everybody said you should put it into a book. So yeah, that became Take Your Shot. You know, it tells Russ's story. He meets a business coach, he turns his business around and then sort of gets after his goals.
Great. So your name is on the Guinness World Record. Yeah.
Yes, well, I don't know if it's still live, but in 2017, I took part in the largest ever speed networking event in London, and I've still got my I still have the certificate very proudly on my shelves over there. So that's one of a couple of my good friends as well on the picture. But so yeah, there were 487 participants in the speed networking event when we did it.
How did you make that happen?
Well, it was I was taking part in it as a participant. It was actually a guy called Daniel Priestley from Dent Global. So he's also quite a well-renowned author. He's been on Diary of a CEO and things like that. But it was his company organised the event that day. So it's actually we were there for a conference, and then just after lunch they said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to try and beat a Guinness World Record. Do you want to take part?" So of course everybody said yes.
That's great. So for our listeners who want to get some help from you, want to connect with you, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a YouTube channel which is growing. So just jump onto YouTube, search for Robin Waite. Also LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me and drop me a message as well. But I do have a gift as well for all of your listeners, Atul. So we talked about Take Your Shot. I've actually got some signed copies which need homes. So if your listeners jump onto fearless.biz/TYS for Take Your Shot, they can go and apply for a copy there and I'll happily sign it and send it out wherever you are in the world.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Robin.
My pleasure.
Yep. Okay, so looking back when you started, what's one pricing lesson you will tell yourself if you have to restart again?
Yeah, this is all with the benefit of hindsight and what I've learned, you know, now to get to this point here. But there's a difference between how we value ourselves intellectually when we set our prices and how our genuine, you know, our internal self-worth. So our head and our heart always often argue over how much we're worth, and therefore, in business terms, how much we charge for something. So whatever your head is thinking of charging, you should probably double it because that's what your heart believes that you're worth.
Okay, got it. Okay, Robin, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and it was really fun chatting with you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Atul.